Okay, in addition to Larry,
If I-
sorry. We have Patricia and Sita and Leif and Mark and Warren and Joan and Tom from the commission. We also have Dominic, and we have Nick and Leanne as our interns, and Professor Weiss is also with us. So as I had indicated before everybody got on, I know Julia is not going to be able to join us until probably about 5 o'clock. I would like to take up the old minutes if we could do that. I think I managed to find all except the last one, December 20th. And I don't know if anyone had any comments or issues with any of the others. To whatever extent possible, I would like to have the batch of them approved if there are no issues. Patricia?
I just want to say I did corral them all in one place, but I'll go on record right now with having not had a chance to go through them. So I'll abstain from any of the voting on this.
Would you prefer that we defer?
Well, I would ask the majority here, did everyone get a chance to review? When I would review, I would be comparing it to our open items list, our log of decisions and actions and issues. I haven't done any of that. I don't know. It's up to the rest of the group. I don't want to hold up the progress.
I'm good. This is Warren. I looked at them.
I'm sorry to say that I have not looked at all of them, so I'm with Patricia. I'd feel more comfortable if we waited.
All right. Then we'll push it off until Monday. Does the same also apply to the open items, closed items as of January 29th? Which we still have open. Has everyone had a chance to review that?
Larry, that looked good to me, and I would move that we approve those open items.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll say second and discussion if you're ready to do that.
Thank you, Warren, and you're on.
And because I'm in the car, so I don't know if it was the 29th or the 27th, but one of those open items, I sent a separate email, I think, to Patricia. She may not have had a chance to see it. It was on the me looking and hunting out for trying to find a contact person and all that other stuff. And it was me basically saying uncle, and I just want to call myself off on that process. And if we still need it, to figure out another way to do that.
Yeah, I at the very least got that email.
Okay, thanks.
So it's Patricia. That's not part of, we should be recording that, and it sounds like Nick did. Thank you, Nick. He's on top of it. But that's not part of that open issues list. That was a static list that was pulled at a point in time in January that we needed to say the fact that we hadn't really been looking and vetting these along the way, whether we wanted to basically say everyone was in agreement in what was captured, both in that and the closed item. So I got it, Warren. We got your open item, and we should talk about that as a separate topic. But this is more looking at, from our meetings in October forward, what myself and the interns had pulled out from whether there was decisions made, whether there was tasks, or whether there were issues.
Any further comments? If not, would all be in favor? Please raise your hand in the window, plus Warren and Joan.
Yes.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, Joan abstains. The
And
one
Joan,
abstention.
I just want to understand, Joan, you're abstaining because you hadn't had a chance to look through it, or?
Not thoroughly. I have not thoroughly.
Okay. And Sita, were you raising your hand to?
I'll just I myself again look through them, but again just skim through. I haven't really looked through it, but I totally rely on Patricia and everybody else's judgment. If you guys think it's got all the things, then I'll vote along with and I'm gonna vote yes. So
Okay.
Lance, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was just trying to vote yes, and I kept trying to figure out how to turn off my thumbs up. But
Okay.
to be honest, I haven't reviewed it either, so I'll either abstain or vote yes. I have no objection.
So I will at this point ask a question of Professor Weiss. So what we're doing here with these lists is using them as documentation to our process. And if we are ever asked, if it's foiled for, it's not public. But should we hold off until everyone has a chance to thoroughly review to make certain that we're all on the same page? Or Professor Weiss, do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, you want to have a record with an affirmative vote, a majority supporting it. So I think it's best to have everybody read it and set a date for a vote so that we have, at least a quorum present. We were essentially looking for a quorum present to take votes. And I just became aware that you might not have been following all of the state open meeting rules, which I shared with the chair to keep a contemporary track of what you're doing, and also that these meetings need to be noticed to the public in advance so they could be aware and watch these meetings as well. And just so you know, we just went through the same process in Syracuse where that city commission wasn't aware of the rules. And I basically asked them to please work with the city government to both publicize their meetings and to make them available to the public to watch, and then to have records of minutes available. So they're doing that now, and you should do the same. This committee is undertaking government action. So you are a government entity, although you're not legislators or paid officials. You are doing a government service under the aegis of Albany County, under the laws of New York State.
I have a question for Patricia. Are we going to be posting these minutes to the website so that people could see them if they wanted to? Oh, I'm assuming we held off on that while we still had them pending.
Yes, so I had an extensive meeting today with Marie, with IT, and yes, we planned on posting the minutes, and we looked at what the county's doing in other places, and for something similar, but we don't have agendas to post where a lot of others have. We weren't talking about posting the recordings, so we need to have a discussion about that.
Yeah, that would be, that's something you should do to make the public as aware and knowledgeable what the process is possible. It would be a good idea. I trust that this meeting is being recorded. So at some point in time, the county should post all of the meetings and then contemporaneously broadcast or telecast the meetings as they take place, plus provide access so that the public can watch but not participate. At some point for hearings, we have to work out a way where the public can both participate, whether you're doing them in person or via Zoom, but to also have them line up, so to speak, to testify in a secured area. So they're only speaking and visible and heard at the time they're speaking. Have you looked into that yet?
Yeah, we Tom has been working with the business analyst and as well as I in terms of the hosting the public hearing. We only have one scheduled at this point, but yes.
Yeah, this whole redistricting era over Zoom is something that lots of governments are trying to figure out. And it also adds to the cost factor. New York State spent about $2,700 for each of their hearings to simulcast them via a Facebook platform and have people in a side room waiting to testify then come on. Those dollars add up quickly.
I don't think we'll have that dollar impact with using Zoom. I think it's actually minimal cost to be able to manage to that. As long as we're doing them totally virtually, which we haven't talked about doing both virtually and in person.
Okay.
And Patricia, I will add to that, we are planning to simulcast them over YouTube while they're going on.
And I think that what we're hearing is that we're going to need to start doing the same with our meetings.
Correct.
So I do have a question about that because we've had discussions as a group previously around this, where some of the commissioners felt that they could then not openly, it would hamper the discussion somewhat if it was totally recorded and available to the public. That there should be cases where there's private deliberations. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm going to look into that because the state commission did go into a so-called executive session and they had work sessions. So I'm going to find out exactly what the parameters are for those.
Yeah, and I think I was the one that voiced that because when you have an open meeting like this, and you know people are watching, it's a chilling effect to actually give out ideas that you may not have totally thought through. And if somebody's only watching one session and then they don't get to subsequent sessions, we could misinform the public because they didn't watch all of them and they never got to that final answer. And they just watched one session and then they went out and ran with that idea that they heard, but it was never fully worked through. That's what scares me if we put these out immediately. First of all, it's a chilling effect on the other commissioners because they don't want to be out there saying something that may be a good idea, but maybe a little bit different from the rest of the group. I'm not going to speak up. So it puts that chilling effect on us. And also, and I guess I'm repeating it, I'd hate for somebody to see one session and then that's their idea without seeing each meeting and understanding the total thought process to what we got to the final answer.
Joan, did you have something that you wanted to say?
I was going to ask the question, would our Zoom meetings be put on the website? But I think it should, and I have always thought that it should.
Leanne, is your hand up?
It isn't.
Okay, thank you. Tom.
I have a question, I think, for Nick Mazza. Are you the only one, Nick, who's joining us today from the MMD?
I guess so. I can't speak for other people, what their intent was. I got the notification yesterday and here I am.
Well, no, we appreciate that, but I had a question.
But whether they're gonna chime in beyond today, I don't know. We had not discussed today's meeting specifically in our last session. I wasn't aware of this meeting until yesterday.
Let me ask though, we know that we've recorded our meetings. We know that we've had troubles, but we've managed to get together a set of complete minutes. And we're talking about finalizing those. But the folks on the redistricting commission only get to hear about what goes on in the MMD kind of third hand when somebody makes a report, and oftentimes that's kind of rushed. Does the MMD have minutes that it could share with the redistricting commission? Are your meetings available? Because it sounds to me from what Professor Weiss is saying that that's going to be a requirement for both groups.
Yeah. Well, we do have minutes. I don't Kashana, Cody keeps those. We do have them. But, you know, I think Marie, you know, Alan has got to speak to that as our chair. You know, today is new information to you and new information to us. We're no different than you in getting Mr. Weiss's advice. So, you know, I will contact Marie if she's not on, which you told me she isn't. And we'll probably have to have a similar discussion with Mr. Weiss with the MMD. But yeah, I mean, there are minutes, they're our minute, you know, they've been kept, yes. To my
Thank you, Nick.
knowledge, yes. I am not the chair or the person that keeps the minutes. So, and I'm in the game kind of, I got into this after things had already, were already moving, as you know.
I
Thank
have
you, Nick.
another question, Larry.
Yes, Joan.
When Professor Weiss said that these should be on the website, does that mean all of the ones that were recorded should be there going backwards?
I would assume so.
Well, so that's where I thought we weren't quite deciding that, because he was going to go back, Professor Weiss, and look at, I mean, they were working groups, working meetings. So whether those are required, I know I'm a person who fought for the transparency in this legislation, but I have reservations myself. I agree that we should put the minutes up, but I'm not so certain in my own mind if they're recordings, because of the fact that we are really getting into some stuff that is, I don't think is necessarily some of Mark's points, let's put it that way. And so I think we meet transparency with minutes, but I have some, and for those of you who may have gone back and looked at some of the recordings, and I know Sita and Leif and Tom have, they're difficult to watch in multiple ways. So
I
I'll
mean,
just,
I agree. Like, even though I've sat through all of the most of them, still following through, you know, something that's taken out of like the whole timeline, and then trying to like put everything down for me, you know, it was difficult for me. So if somebody is gonna sit and watch them all from A to Z, I guess that would make sense. But if somebody just wants to pick a single meeting out of the batch and watch, I don't know, I think it might be a little difficult to follow.
I'm
If-
very confused at the secrecy, that it seems that there is some secrecy in what we're doing. We're on a public, we knew when we joined this voluntarily that this would be transparent and public. So I'm very confused. We don't have an executive. So I'm not sure why this secrecy, it seems to be secrecy to me.
I don't believe it's secrecy at all. I just think we want to get the best product possible. All the meetings before we've had are really administrative, talking about who we're going to hire and all that kind of stuff. That is fine. Put that all up. But when we go into the hard work and we start talking about moving roads here and there and all the kind of stuff, I want people to feel open to bring out additional ideas rather than just code with groupthink. And then our final product is, we're going to be transparent with that. We're going to put that out, and we're required to explain why we did this. You know, what were our thought patterns? But during the deliberations, we should be able to talk freely and not worry that somebody's going to watch one meeting, leave that meeting, and never come back and have a wrong idea of what we're doing. It's not secrecy. It's just, you need to have, I've been in large meetings, and if you don't have the ability to speak freely without people judging you, then you're going to get groupthink and you're not going to get the best product possible.
Larry?
Just a moment, Tom. Leif had his hand up.
Yeah, just a observation, and perhaps for the benefit of Professor White as well. That is, and having, done minutes of 3 of those meetings, gone back and attended most of the meetings, it's my perspective, my understanding that most of what we've been doing has been ministerial and administrative in nature, as Mark points out. We've spent a lot of time trying to put the wheels on the bus. And there's really been very little substantive discussion except debates over transparency. And I agree and concur that we want to be fully compliant with the open meetings law, but to the extent that the open meetings law has a differentiation between working sessions, executive sessions, and substantive public sessions, we should try to avail ourselves of that distinction.
Right.
We had a discussion about this early on, and I think we came to the conclusion, I'm not sure if there was a vote, that we would have the minutes be public after we had approved them, but that we would not be posting the videos to the website. And in that discussion, if I recall correctly, there was an acknowledgement that these are public records, and if somebody were to foil them, they would be able to get access to them.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go right ahead, because I was going to leave it to you.
That issue came up at the State Commission where when they did have their private deliberations, the chair made it clear that anybody in the public that wanted to get that material would have to FOIA the request. I, in fact, had somebody send a FOIA request for those information, the information for 2 or 3 certain meetings. It's been a month and haven't heard yet, but the request was made. So I wanted to see what it is that they did. But by Monday, I'm hoping tomorrow to talk with the council in the state open meetings office just to find out the exact distinctions between public meetings, executive sessions, and executive meetings and work sessions. And we'll just have to abide by whatever the determinations are. But at this point, it's best that I tell you that at the next meeting.
Thank you. I do want to talk about timing on a couple of different things. Professor Weiss has offered up a few dates for legal training. And I'm sorry, Patricia?
We never finished the agenda item. And I
We
do
never
want to.
voted. Yes, we did.
Well, not only that, but I think
We did
that.
vote.
No, we didn't. I don't think well, maybe we did. And there was some, and then afterwards, but I do have.
Conversation continued, but.
Yes, exactly. So it was just interesting that Tom mentioned we had made a decision prior, because in that closed item list, and if we were ever foiled for this stuff, you would see that there's that stuff in there. And that's why I'm very conscious of the fact that people, if we're voting yes, we're accepting these things. This is now record. So that's where I left it off in terms of, are we really comfortable with this vote now, or do more people want time to look through and make sure they understand what they're saying is now going into the record?
I would prefer to have more time to look at, I mean, first of all, we're voting on the minutes also next month on Monday. And so maybe I will take a look at the open and closed items as well over the weekend, just to make sure that, I have a better understanding. Maybe we can push that vote back also to Monday.
May I make a suggestion?
Ms. Jones?
Patricia,
Mm-hmm.
can you let us know where these 2 items are, so everyone, including Julia, can know where we go to look and what date we're going to vote on this, so we can all be on the same page at the same time?
Yes, I've been doing that every time I send out the minutes. But what would be good is, Larry, if you do an agenda, you include those links so that because I think people are looking at the agenda and I'm replying with the minutes. So it would just be helpful if they aligned up. But yes.
Don't do Outlook that well, but I haven't, this is the first time I've done Outlook in years. And it has changed. We can continue this discussion on Monday and see where things stand. Julia has now joined us, and there were a couple of aspects of timing that I think that we do need to discuss. One is that Professor Weiss has offered 4 dates as possible dates for legal training of 60 to 90 minutes. Those dates are the 24th or 25th of February, next Thursday or Friday, and the 1st or 3rd of March.
Time, are we deciding on the time right now or just first dates and then?
Well, that's where I wanted to get a sense of what the best time frame for each date is, whether it's a morning, an afternoon, like what's best for the members.
So we're doing this as a group, right? We're not like dividing ourselves into, we're just coming up with one date, or what date works for?
I was suggesting, let's say 1 60 or 90-minute session for me
Okay,
to give you an overview of the law, and do it as a group. It's probably,
I cannot promise to be at anything that's more than a few minutes long before 6 p.m. on a weekday. I just can't. It's too hard. So that would, I mean, my vote is, I mean, I'm fine with any of those days if it's 6 p.m. or later, but during the week, it's just impossible for me to have a 90-minute window during the workday and guarantee that I'll be there.
And I'm the same. So those of us who work, there just happen to be women who can multitask enough. But there are 3 of us who work. So I don't know what people think about doing it in an evening.
I mean, I can do 6:45 or 7 on any weekday.
let me just ask, your first hearing is on, is it the March 1st or March 8th?
It
March
is March 8th.
Okay, so to do an evening event, perhaps the evening of, let's see, Tuesday, March 1st, that evening is good for me.
Does that work for folks?
Yeah, I mean,
6 p.m. Tuesday,
Yeah, 6
March 1st.
p.m., 6 p.m. Tuesday, March 1st.
I can do that as well.
yeah, that's not gonna work for me. I'm only free Tuesday and Wednesdays after I like at 7. I can't do 6 p.m. on Tuesdays and
We
Thursdays.
could do from, I mean, depending on what you want, I'm also available to start at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, the 1st, if that's the earliest.
I mean, I don't wanna, I feel like I don't want to be like the bottleneck for everybody else if it's late, I just
We
feel
could
bad
also-
about the work
We're
process.
trying to find something that works for everybody, Sita.
could
So
also
it's,
Yeah, 7 o'clock on Tuesday, on the 1st would work for me as well.
And
What
we
about
could,
the MMD? Are we doing them together?
I think that's really a question that's addressed to you, Professor Weiss.
yeah, I could do it on the 1st. I don't know what the MMD schedule, their availability is, but I could do it on March 1st, beginning at 7. Go
And
for
the
what-
goal would be to try to do both groups if that's amenable to the MMD.
Right. And we could aim for 7 to 8 and go later if necessary.
And,
Works for me.
and we have talked about, if not everyone can be there, it's going to be recorded, so we could look it over, and then you just wouldn't have a chance to ask questions, but you could ask questions at the next meeting, if you needed to.
When do we plan on doing that then?
I
7
would
p.m.
suggest, I would
Yes,
suggest,
Dominic.
I'm sorry I didn't put my hand up. I would suggest that the chair get a hold of Marie Allen and, make sure that she is the chair
will
is
do that, yeah.
aware of this, and I know it would be sooner the better.
Yeah, I will do that.
Thank you.
And I'll make sure that she knows that all of the members of the MMD are invited.
Yep.
Okay. The other scheduling, yes, Patricia.
One other question was, Professor Weiss, is there anything you think we need to look at before we get into the training?
What I could do, let me ask Larry, did you shared a copy of the NCSL Red Book with everybody?
I did.
Yeah, it's a lengthy tome, but that book pretty much summarizes everything you need to know at the outset, plus a lot more. So if you skim that over, and then I'll be also focusing on my presentation on New York State law in particular, but the NCSL Red Book, if you can page through it, would be a good start. That's a pretty good summary.
Thank you.
And not the entire book is applicable. You want to read about equal population, minority voting rights, partisan gerrymandering, racial gerrymandering. Those are the key sections. You don't need to read about the census or commissions, although you are a commission, but just the basic meat of the criteria.
Thank you.
Don't spend a lot of time on it. It can take you much too long to read the whole thing.
Okay. The other thing I think that we do need to come to some better resolution of is our meetings. I know that the Monday from 4 to 5 has been difficult for some. This time on Thursday, I know is also difficult for several. I'm one of the retirees, so I am considerably flexible. My only issue is when I have another meeting scheduled. I can fill in almost any point in time. So it really, I think that the critical issue is our 3 working women, and that's Patricia, Sita, and Julia. And I don't know how everyone else reacts to regularly scheduling evening meetings. I think that they're very common in the not-for-profit world. And I don't know if this group has an issue with that or not. It certainly, I think, certain. My concern is that an hour a week is not going to be enough for us to do what we need to do. And I think that when we actually get into going over maps, that it's probably going to be an extended discussion that makes the most sense, rather than doing it in 1 hour bites.
I mean, we could do I don't know, we might have to do a poll again, because Monday for me, 4 to 5 seems to be fine. It's just today I had the glitch. I mean, I had penciled it in my schedule for this meeting, but something came up at work. So those things I can't really predict or account for, but do you want to send a doodle poll around? Because I'm sure other people maybe have issues with the time.
Sita, let me make a suggestion. I think I sent it around earlier to everybody that you and Patricia and Julia get together and look at your schedules and see what time would work. I think it's clear that a 1 hour slot is insufficient, so it would have to be longer than that. But for me, I'm willing to move it to some other time. I know the MMD has picked Saturday mornings for its meetings, so I would want to avoid that so they can still participate with us. But other than that, I'm open. But it really is, the biggest burden is on the 3 of you. And if the 3 of you put your heads together and come up with some 2 or 3 possible alternatives, and then
I'm fine over the weekend too, but I don't know how everybody else would feel about that.
Well, if the MMD is already meeting on Saturday morning and we're trying to accommodate them as well, is that my understanding?
Yes.
I wouldn't want to compete with them. Let me put it that way.
Right.
I mean, we have Saturday evening, Sunday late afternoon. I mean, there are, quite a few options, but again, it's the weekend. Maybe not everybody wants to, commit a big chunk of time. So that's why I feel like maybe a poll would be better, because it's not then, at that point of time, just the three of us who are working.
Well,
It's,
I guess, could we just say whether anybody objects to a weekday night?
Why don't the three of
Warren
you
has had
come
his
up with
hand
two
up.
or three options and do a doodle poll, and then you'll see exactly where everybody falls out.
Are we saying though that Monday at 4? I mean, I don't think I have an issue. Cedar, you're saying. Julia, I know sometimes we go a little over, but are we all good with Monday still 4 to 5?
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
fine with that. I just have to leave right at 5, but that's no big deal, really.
Okay, all right,
I
so it's just
I
a
just
second
didn't
date.
want to never be able to make a second meeting. And if we do a second meeting,
right. The second meeting is the,
I'm happy to put a doodle poll together because I don't want us to suck down a bunch of time talking about this
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
So
If I could suggest, if to meet as long as you can from 4 to 5 until it becomes evident that you need more time than 1 hour on a Monday, I think maybe at that point you can then see where people's availabilities are to pick a different day and a different time frame.
that
Actually,
has not
that's-
work for us.
No, it's,
Okay.
It sounded like a good idea at the time, but it didn't work. So we
Okay.
had a separate
We
time.
we need to schedule out further
Yeah.
than the current week. Warren, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was gonna pretty much say what Patricia said. We started conflating problems with Monday and other days. We need to be clear, so we just keep babbling back and forth a little bit. Monday seemed to be okay. We were talking about the other day, and I
yeah,
think it's really the three working ladies who have the hardest problem. So doodling everybody else's on the first end is not really the best option when we don't have the problem, with the dates. There was one other thing, but I forgot, so I'm good for now.
can I just ask a very quick question with all of us here? Is Thursday evenings okay? It's the issue, I think, of the timing. So
I don't have Thursday at 7.
Later is better on Thursday for me.
I have a commitment from 7 to 8:30 on Thursday.
okay, we'll do a doodle poll. Thank you, Julia, for taking that.
I'll just mention at the outset, I teach on Wednesdays, so from 4 o'clock on Wednesdays, so through the end of April, I won't be available.
Oh, that was fun.
so I think you need to send a doodle poll to, I think, everybody. I mean, at this point, it doesn't make sense just for
Yeah,
me,
I
Julia.
got
Julia's
it.
gonna take
I'm gonna
it.
do a doodle
She's
poll.
gonna do it.
Let's move on.
Yeah, okay,
All right.
let's
Thank you,
move on.
Julia. Leif, is there any report of the budget committee?
Yes, thank you. We're making some progress. I've heard from Larry Malden, who's given me some estimates of the MMD costs, and I've done a very rough preliminary estimate of our commission costs. And so far, we're well within budget, but there's certainly much more to learn in terms of cost, particularly as we get into the hearings and the public information functions or officer or however would handle that. So I intend to share that with the rest of the committee. It's just been Larry and myself, Malden and myself that have looked at it so far. And then once we get a chance to digest that, we'll be reporting it out to the commission and the MMD.
Thank you. Professor Weiss, a related question. Are we going to need to actually get transcripts of our meetings?
I don't think transcripts, no, recordings I think are sufficient.
Okay, thank you. Warren, is there any report of the publicity committee?
I sent it around earlier for everyone to look at, so it's pretty lengthy. So I'll just say the report as it was sent via email.
So I have a question on that, just because we're trying to put everything together holistically for the public hearing and everything else. So for the public hearing, we're doing YouTube live streaming, which will go right back to the website as a recording. Is the Public Relations Committee thinking about other social media at all?
You mean just with reference to the public hearing?
No, in general.
Oh, in general, yeah. I mean, we're going to try a whole host of ways to reach the community. Social media, you know, YouTube, we're gonna do whatever we can, but
Okay, all right. So the reason why I asked wasn't just the public hearing, it's really the website, because I did a website design meeting today and we talked about linking to our social media sites. So as that progresses, just let us know. Okay, I'll read the report.
We had talked about doing advertising, obviously, as we come up to our first public hearing. We're required to put a legal notice in the county's 2 official papers. And I spoke with the clerk of the legislature's office about arranging for that now that we have a fixed date of the 8th of March and a time of 4 to 7, and they are going to take care of that. That's also the office that would be approving and paying the bills for things like legal notices. Subsequently to that, I reached out to the Times Union people, excuse me, for some information about taking out an ad in the Times Union that would be much more visible than the legal notice and much more likely to get the attention of the public. It turns out that it costs about $500 to put a smallish sized ad in the Times Union. The one I used as a prototype was about 5 inches wide and about 4 inches high. It does come in full color for that price. Each insertion is $500, whether it's one in the Sunday paper or if it's in a weekday paper. The 2 papers that are the most read or the highest circulation for the week are the Sunday paper and the Thursday paper. I preliminarily told the contact at the Times Union Advertising, whose name is Teresa Lapointe, that we were probably interested in taking out an ad on Sunday and another one on Thursday. My thought being that we would go the Sunday that is 9 days before our public hearing and the Thursday that is 5 days before the public hearing for about $1,000. I do have it on my list of things to talk to her about, to ask about the Times Union's ability to do electronic advertising as well. They have a website that a lot of people do pay attention to, especially if they don't subscribe, and those would be people we would be interested in getting aware of our hearing because they won't see the ad. And I have not had that conversation yet, but I'm thinking that at least for the first public hearing, if we were to try this, this would be a good way to see how effective that is. I will go so far as to mention that these things are always more complicated than you think they're going to be. And it turns out that the Times Union has a whole process to open an account with them that involves their home office, wherever that is now, and an application and so on. So it's never easy anymore to do anything. And this is going to be proof of that. But I think it is money well spent to get something more than a legal notice in the paper. And I think it's worth our time to try and do what we can to get into some electronic advertising, even though I know that will have something of a cost as well. But that's what I have as far as publicity and advertising for the public hearing. And if anybody else has anything they want to add to that, I'd be glad to listen.
Leif?
Tom, I was following along carefully, but do you have a bottom line of projected cost per hearing for advertising? Or can you send me one?
I think we're probably looking at an advertising cost that's pretty variable. I mean, the legal notice is about $100 or $125, depending on the size, for both newspapers. So that's fairly small. We're now looking at $1,000 for 2 small ads that would run. We've talked in the past about trying to reach out through some of the local weeklies. I suspect an ad there of comparable size is probably several $100s as well. So it will add up over time, but if we don't get the word out there about what we're doing somehow, we're not going to have very many people at the public hearing, and we would run the risk of being criticized for not doing a good enough job of publicizing it. I will digress for 1 minute and say I've talked to that Times Union reporter who was going to write a story about what we're doing now that we have a date for our public hearing. I hadn't heard anything. I haven't seen a story. I called again and I left a message for him. I've heard nothing back. So I don't know where that's going. And I also know we've talked about doing things like a community calendar or a press release about this, but no one has stepped forward to volunteer to write that. And if we're going to do that with enough lead time, now is the time. So if anybody would be interested in being a part of that, please let me know.
For present purposes, you think $2,000 to $3,000 per hearing might be a rough guess?
Especially if we're no longer going to be doing a transcription. That was a big question in my mind, whether that was a $500 expense or $1,500 or what. But if we're able to handle the recording of the meeting through information services, and if we're looking at ads that in the Times Union would run maybe $1,100, including the legal, that would certainly leave us the flexibility to go with print ads in some of the other weeklies, which might also cause them to be willing to write a story about this. So that helps.
Great, thank you.
Lauren?
Yeah, I will add that we talked about, and this is an upcoming thing, and I think Tom's researching some of this, whether we're going to try to hire a PR firm per se or a social media specialist, on a lower level. So that gets into the procurement guidelines and all that other stuff, and that's why Tom is going to look into it. Meaning, if it's discretionary or under 20,000, under 50. So we also talked about obviously getting some numbers to the budget committee, but we're not quite there yet. But that's what we're looking at. And it gets back to Patricia's question a little bit earlier, although she was talking more about maybe social media sites. But at the same time, we're definitely planning to do that. And we're going to probably have to hire a professional. But again, given the sometimes slow process of procurement, that's something that we're looking into.
Warren, I will add to that, just to close out this issue, that talking to Mary Rozak, who is the Director of Communications at the County Executive's Office, she advised me that the procurement policies have recently been updated, and at the moment, if you are doing a contract for under $5,000, you really need to get one price from somebody. If you are doing something between 5 and 10, you're required to get 3 quotes, but she also modified that to say that a quote could be someone telling you that they are not interested. The fact that you actually asked them for a quote and that they turned you down counts as one of the 3. If you go over $10,000, you start getting into the requirements of multiple ways to make people aware of this that take time and slow things down and require contracts board action. So I think what I'm learning is that if it's somewhere under $10,000, that whole process is going to be a lot easier than if it's over 10. And I don't know if 10 is enough for something like that, but that would mean if we spent 10 for the MMD and 10 for the redistricting commission, that'd be a total cost of about $20,000.
Thanks for adding that in, Tom. Any idea on the lead time in terms of how we procure the money, make payments, secure the person, or just get bids and then we have to, who do we send that to?
Again, I'm 8 years out of having worked for the county, and clearly the rules have changed, but it would seem to me that if we put our heads together in the PR committee and we went out and drafted something, someone has to draft something in the way of a description of what it is we're looking for. Warren, I believe I forwarded to you from Mary Rozak a list of 3 potential groups that might be able to handle something like this. We could find out fairly quickly if something in the $9,000 range would work for them, and that would be a very expedited process. If it goes above 10, it looks like it's going to be taking much longer.
Okay, when was that email? Was that today or this week?
Yes, it was. Yeah,
today.
I'm going to say about 1 o'clock.
Thank you.
And my suspicion is that we would need to get it documented through the county attorney's office.
I don't know what you mean by that, Larry.
Well, if we're going to enter into a contract with someone to provide services, we're going to need a contract.
It's probably a fairly simple type of contract, and we might have something, but there'd have to be something signed. You're right.
Yeah, it's, kind of.
And I guess the last item on my agenda, and I think we've really talked about much of it, is the public hearing.
Warren has his hand up still. Warren?
No, I'll put it down. Sorry, I'm on my phone.
Sorry.
Yep.
The public hearing is coming up relatively quickly, and my recollection is that we said that we would have information out to the public by February 22nd, and that's 5 days from now. So I think what we need to have out, if you can refresh my memory, Tom, was how people register to participate? Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's right. That's the key thing, because if we don't have that to put in a legal notice or in an ad, referring people to the website to get that is critical. Patricia sort of asked me this question earlier in a message that when was it that really would be our deadline date? And I think that we have made a commitment in the first progress report to have something available on the website by the 22nd. You're right. But the real critical thing would be you start running ads in the Times Union that say, go to this website and you run that ad on the 27th of February, you better have your website ready on the 27th to start receiving people's communications.
So I, again, had a pretty significant meeting on the website today, and we talked about how to go about certain things and the sign-up process to testify at the public hearing. I think we can make that pretty easy. There's a process as to whether we want to actually accept testimony written and or in or maps and so forth, that we have to do some work on. So I think for this first one, and there's a lot of web work to be done, and I do need to bring up some other things that happened in that meeting. But I think and again, it's more me working over the weekend to try and get something to the web person, Jen. And she's on vacation next week, but she can maybe fit it in. We can get some things done. So it's going to be tight, but I'm going to actually ask, you guys that on Monday's meeting, how much do you want me to use my judgment versus you guys needing to look at and approve some of where we're going? Because I'm going to have to put out copy, design pretty much what goes up there.
Speaking just for
Martha,
myself, I'm comfortable with you going ahead and doing this because time is of the essence.
I do as well, Warren.
Okay, that's good to know.
Let's actually take it as a vote. The question is authorizing Patricia to do copy and design for the website.
I would make that motion if you want to make a motion. I would make that motion, Larry. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is that sufficient for you, Patricia, to give you comfort?
Yeah, take the vote though. If you're going to call for a vote, we should.
I'll second it. I'll second it, Warren.
Thank you, Warren. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
I abstain.
Aye, Warren.
I have a question, Patricia.
Yes, ma'am.
After it's done, how long will it take to be posted?
It should be pretty quick. There was definitely a backlog related to COVID and everything else. But it should be pretty quick. In fact, you should be able to see the MMD changes, hopefully by, if not now, they're live. It will be live tomorrow. So we talked about the need for expediency. It's more feeding her what's needed. So I think we can be okay. So did we finalize the vote there? We were all in favor with one abstention of me.
That's correct. And I think that we also should vote on authorizing Tom to commit money for advertising.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. At what number, Patricia?
So having not seen the budget report and knowing where we stand in terms of the available dollars, I did see that Leif did not cringe when we said 2,000 to 3,000 per hearing. So if Leif is comfortable with that, based on him and Larry Malden's review, because again, it will impact the MMD. It's a pool. then I vote for us to go for the 3K per.
$3,000.
I don't
Okay.
know. Is Leif still with us? I think we
He's
just.
not. He dropped.
Eh,
But you're right, he did not cringe at that. Is there a second to the motion to authorize up to $3,000 for advertising for the public hearing?
Question,
Yes,
is that just for the one that's March 8th?
that is just for the one that is March 8th.
I second that.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? If not, please vote by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
I for
Aye.
Warren.
And it looks like it's unanimous. 8, because Leif has left. Is there anything else that we need to do this evening? Yes, Patricia.
I want to raise something, and not, we won't have time to get through it today, but I want to raise it as a future agenda topic. The county is using, obviously, software today in which they have maps out there. It actually is called ARCGIS, and they have a vendor that we use called CHA. And when you look at the tools that are out there, and I can send them around for what the county currently has, you'll see that to use these tools on the website is a learning curve. It happens to be the same software that the vendor for MMD uses. So it's called ArcGIS. However, the software that we have for the ACRC is not the same, and I'm trying to figure out how to handle this, because these mapping software, you need to understand, a person needs to understand the layers, the filter, all of this. And we don't want to confuse the public with different tool sets. So we want to be consistent. So it's a topic that Marie and I felt needed a lot more discussion. And we're going to need to, and maybe it's such that we work in, the ACRC works in Maptitude, but makes the public, potentially shows the public through another, through ArcGIS, we don't know, but we're going to need some real discussion about the impact to the public in seeing and using different tool sets. So it's not easily resolved.
I think it's something that we clearly need to have Priya involved in. And I had an email from Priya earlier today in which she raised the potential for producing maps, as we had talked on Monday, of where the districts currently stand over and under ideal population. And she was wondering whether those maps, the ArcGIS maps, could be used for that. And I don't know who the interface for the county is.
I do. I learned
okay.
today. I learned
All right.
today, and I want to make everybody aware. I asked, so we have the county has a contract with CHA, and they said they're usually quite responsive. They have to look at costs, but they didn't think it was going to be an issue. But what's interesting is I'm saying who in the county owns the data, and it wasn't really unusual to me to find that the county planning department is really who does own this. And so I wasn't going to go so far. They gave me the name, the phone number, everything. Laura whatever. I won't muddle her name too much. Laura D. And I wasn't going so far yet as to reach out to her, because it's also about the county going forward with mapping beyond us. Once the maps are done and everything else, and how they're going to incorporate in the coordination there. So topic to be discussed further, although I'm not sure how to start with getting that conversation together until we also, the MMD gets their mapping firm more online and has a conversation there.
But I think that-
Patricia, does it sound to you though like we're going to have a problem if we get maps from the MMD trying to convert that into the process or the software that our mapping contractor is using so we can come up with the final maps?
I'm sure Professor Weiss
Yeah.
can talk further to that, but I don't think so.
Yeah, all of the mappers, if they're using one particular private company software called Maptitude, all of the files are interchangeable in that with the standard shape file, you can upload one plan into another software system. We just go back, was the question as to who owned the current map?
No, well, the question was, we wanted to show on the website the current districts with new revised census data. And how to, in what tools should we do that?
Yeah, that is basically public information that's available for free from the Census Bureau, and AppGeo on its own, under its contract with you, should be able to, or they have already, download that data from the Census Bureau, overlay and show the current districts, the new populations, and that's basically public information that the county planning department really shouldn't have any interference with.
No, it's not. I don't think that that's the issue of getting the data into a tool. The question is, what do we show it to the public? What tool do we show it? What interface?
Who maintains the commission's website in the county?
The IT department does, under guidance from me and Marie.
So can't you provide them the map to post?
No, I think you're missing one little piece, which is, yes, the data is available, but the different software packages to allow an end user through the website, let's say, to manipulate that data in layers and everything else, we want to be consistent in that tool. And there are two competing tools that we're talking about. One is ArcGIS, which the county uses and that the MMD is going to use, versus Maptitude, which is what the, so we're trying to decide in the short term,
yeah,
how do we represent that to the public as the current maps? Which piece of software do we take those files into?
Okay, well, the files are, I mean, ArcGIS is one private vendor company and Maptitude is another private vendor company, but so I see your question now. I think for the purposes of the commission, it would be consistent that the commission post the commission's own work product. And
Sir, I agree with you. However, there is one piece, which is what do we show? We would like to show the public
consistently
what the world looks like now. And there is existing software, the ArcGIS software, that the county has a contract with. And we would like to overlay the new data from the census onto those maps and have that be available for the public for the first public hearing. We're
Yeah.
not talking about using it
What hearing?
beyond that time.
Why would we not use Maptitude though? I mean,
Right.
that's what
Is it-
we're contracted to use. Why would we not use that?
because the
It's not
MMD is, well, not only that,
No,
but also
at the moment, the reason right now is that the Maptitude is not ready.
but we need to think about what is the one tool set and not put two different tool sets in front of the public.
yeah,
I guess maybe I'm not really, I mean, this is probably a further discussion. It just seems like if we're working with ArcGeo, then we use what they're using and that's our website and we go forth with what we have agreed with our contractor to use. I don't know, it seems, why
And the
borrow?
MMD would do the same.
But the MMD is going to use a different piece of software. And I'm telling you, using that software, either one of them, is not necessarily intuitive. You have to learn how to use it to some extent. So you're going to make the public learn two different tools.
Yeah, that I think is a problem when the minority subcommittee went off and contracted or is contracting with a different software vendor. You know, the data and the maps will end up being the same. It's just that you're working on different private platforms.
That's right.
And I mean, the maps that I'm going to work on are going to be hopefully one and the same. It's just a matter of whether you serve it through company A or company B. But I think you can take the ArcGIS product, their shapefile, put it into Maptitude. It'll be the same thing, and simply show it through the commission's own software on its own website or the main website.
Yes. So the more we're talking through this, the more I'm thinking that ArcGIS. Well, no, let's not go there.
Aptitude, yeah.
No, I got to think it through more, but we need to figure it out. I want a consistent, for the public, a consistent user interface in manipulating the data.
Also keep in mind that creative members of the public they might have their own free software.
Right.
Somebody like Steve Elliott's going to work with Dave's redistricting, and he's simply going to use the same exact data.
Take down the shape files.
Yeah, the shape file, and work with it however he pleases or anyone else pleases. If anybody in the public wants to use, very few entities around the country actually use the Maptitude or ArcGIS online, public interface programs. So they're not used to using those. Something called Dave's redistricting is what most people use. It's free, it's self-taught, it works. So, but to make it simple from the county perspective, and again, this is my first introduction to this being an issue tonight, I would prefer Maptitude because you're the commission, it's your software, and I personally have used Maptitude more. ArcGIS is a brand new program. Maptitude's been around for 20 years.
But what about, I was thinking also there might, and I know we're running way over, guys. I thought there might be a third option, which is that I know through the New York State process, I was using the CUNY tool, Redistricting in You, which actually I found to be much more user-friendly in terms of manipulating the data and seeing the statistics with it. So I didn't know.
Yeah, but you couldn't draw your own maps yourself on that website. You only looked at the objectively at what was on the screen.
Which I think is what we're saying the public would generally need. If they want to do more in drawing their maps, they use their own tool and download the shape files and do whatever.
But it feels like we're making it more complicated than just using what the person we're contracting with to work with on this. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It just seems like it's over complicating it to go beyond what ArcGeo and Maptitude is providing us help with.
I don't know, Julia, if you get into these tools, do you want on the redistricting website, 2 different complete ways of dealing with maps? The MMP one way and the ACRC another way.
One for each page. Won't there be separate pages anyway?
Yes, except there be people who we should be using both. Anyway, let's table it because it's.
I'd like to mention one last thing before this meeting breaks.
Yes,
People leave. The county website and the county statute indicate that the overall deviation for the plan is set at 10% from the size, or the largest to smallest district cannot exceed 10%. In late October, Governor Hochul signed legislation that narrows that down to 5% for all counties. So what you post should probably update. I can help you work on that, but I don't want anyone to think that 10% is the limit anymore before people get carried away or get misled. It's 5% now.
Yeah, we've talked about making sure the website reflects or at least points out the new legislation that passed.
Okay, good, thank you.
And the county is aware that it does not.
The county's website is wrong, by the way. It doesn't even show the current legislation.
It's just very, very much out of date. Yes, Tom.
One thing I wanted to mention before we close, there was some discussion about trying to set out a schedule for the other public hearings. And initially, I have to say, speaking just for myself, I had real reservations about that. But the more I think about it, the more I think it may make sense. I mean, we need a lot of lead time to get notices out to people. If we did set dates for when these hearings would be, we'd know when we had to get certain things done, and we could communicate that with the mapping people. So I'm coming around on that issue, and I just want the rest of the members to give it some thought as well, because I think now that we should really get serious about trying to put those dates right on a calendar.
And couldn't we do some publication of all of them if we put them on the calendar?
Yeah, that makes sense. The only thing is, I think you'd want to still make people aware as you came up to each one of them, especially if we were going to deal with a different topic or it was targeted towards a different part of the county. You'd still want to be specific about what the purpose of that particular hearing was.
We just need to make sure that AppGeo is also in place as to the scheduling. All right. As has been noted, we have run considerably over. Are there anything further that needs to come before the meeting?
Larry, can we ask Priya for her plan? She's got a smart sheet plan, which is basically, it outlines all the dates and everything else. And I'm very familiar with smart sheet. So if we could get access to that plan, I'd love to see what her dates are for things.
Yeah, I second that. That would be great. I love smart sheets.
I will ask.
She put it up during her briefing, but
Yes,
we
she
didn't
did.
get it. We didn't get it shared. So
Larry,
I think
can
she
I
said
ask
some of
another
it was out of date.
I'm sorry?
Priya put up a document that showed the changes
Yes.
without the prison numbers. Can I get a screenshot of that one slide from her presentation?
Well, can she give us her whole presentation?
Or give it to
Yeah.
the Peace Commission, please?
Yeah, I'm going to ask her for at least the plan.
Well, can you ask for that as well? The presentation that she gave to us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
Larry, are you looking for a motion to adjourn?
I am.
I would make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Anybody objects? Should stay on.
By
Thank you,
yourself.
Professor Weiss, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend, everybody.